Alright, this is our wrap-up on Phonegap. I'm going to go ahead and show you a second app that does more. Alright, there's a www directory, and the important files there are the config.xml and index.xml, or index.html. That's where everything starts. You can trace everything from those two files. Okay, first the config. The version number you can control to be whatever you want. The name is the name of the app that shows up in your phone or whatever. Okay, so you make that whatever you want. And description, author. Okay, then the rest of here, these are options that you can play with. One of them that I just changed is full screen. It was set to true. If you set it to true, then you won't see the clock and status bar on your phone. If you set it to false, then it'll be like most apps that leave that shown. I kind of like it. Still be showing the time and so forth. Alright, and then down here, this lists plugins that we're using, and we'll get to this in a minute. And the icons and splash screen. The splash screen will show as your app is loading. So I'm just looking at the Android right now. I didn't mess with these other images, but that's in this subdirectory, and these are different resolutions for different resolution phones. If we look there, I just put something else in there than the default. You could put whatever. So this would be what shows when the. Of course, this doesn't look super great, but all right. And then there's landscape and portrait, depending on which direction the phone is pointed, and the different resolutions. All right, so we would need to change each one of those, and the ones for the other devices, but I'm not messing with those right now. We have the icons. And the Android icons I set here as these, so there's no subdirectory there. Just right here, and the different resolutions for the icons. Now for me, I was still seeing the Phonegap icon, so I must have missed something. Alright, but those would be the ones to change, the icons and the splash screens. This section here says what your app is allowed to access in terms of the internet. I added a star so that the app can access, is going to request access to access anything. So that's it in the config. The index.html is a regular HTML file with two extra things. Let's go and take some notes. Alright, that was the basic stuff. Now we're putting some extra information here. So, notes on index.html. So it's a regular HTML file. You can look at it in your browser to do some debugging. Okay, so I can go and open that. And this is what it looks like. Some of the information, some of the stuff works and some of it doesn't. So that's the HTML you can look at in your browser. Alright, so two things that you will need to do required. somewhere, let's say at the end of the HTML file, you include a script tag for Phonegap.js. If we go and look over here, there's this include Phonegap.js. Okay, that's one thing required before using any plugins. The plugins are extra functionality related to the phone. It's not part of normal JavaScript. Okay, so before doing any of those, you need to receive the device ready event. Okay, and so what that requires is 2 lines. In here, it's inside of this index.js file. So if you search for device ready, here's one line that's required. So this is, then you would have a function on device ready that gets called. And then in here, okay to set up things based on the plugins. Okay, so when your web page loads, you'll register this event listener that says, hey, when device is ready event, run this function. And then that function will run, which in here is this, which calls this, and then any extra stuff that uses the plugins will run here. So this one is using the geolocation plugin. This is the line that's supposed to be called to get the location of the phone, and that's supposed to be plugged into this distance to root hall. There's nothing showed there right now. If we run it on our phone, it would show some distance. And the way this, okay, so it's all we'll say about that for now. And so you have a regular, you could just have a regular index.html with nothing extra if it doesn't use any phone stuff. If it's just, I have some examples here. This is from a class that's an 8 Queens puzzle. This is just regular HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, nothing special. The same exact web page here can run on the phone. These are buttons. You can read about what the 8 Queens puzzle is. Here's another one. Somebody was needing to draw points. So this is just a canvas that when you click on it, it draws red circles, and that is in this file. So this is all the code you need. So here's the body. There is a canvas centered on the screen that has this ID. So that's created, and then this script is loaded. This gets that canvas as a variable, get element by ID, and this is all case sensitive. And it just resets the width and the height based off the size of the screen. Okay, so it's going to be taking up most of the screen. And then here we have a click function. So when the click has happened, this click function will run. This can be any JavaScript code here, but it's very common to put a function call. When the click function happens, we get the canvas. And then to do any drawing, this is the way it has to happen, is you get the context, the 2D context. That's just what happens. And to find out where, so this click function is supposed to be something that takes a parameter that's going to be an event. And either it comes in that event or it comes in something called a window.event, depending on what kind of browser you're in. So this here makes it so this will work in most browsers, all browsers. All right, and then the x and y coordinates are here in the event.pagex, page y. And to get the coordinates within the canvas, you have the offset of the canvas from the left and from the top. The way to draw a circle is it's an arc that goes all the way around. So it starts at 0 degrees, goes up to all the way around the circle. This is the center of the circle where they clicked. This is the radius. The style for drawing the line is black. The style for filling the circle is red. And then we stroke draws the line, fill fills it in. All right, so this is just this works the same on the phone and on the computer. Just like this 8 queens. You could have an indexed HTML that doesn't use any phone stuff. But we do. Okay, and this distance to root hall uses a Phonegap plugin. So let me show you the Phonegap plugins. All right, if we look at plugins here, Phonegap plugins, there's one called, so you can click on any of these, but we'll look at geolocation. Okay, so for all of these, there's going to be a line here that you need to copy and paste and put into your config.xml. So here is the spot where those go. Right here in the first one is this line I just copied and pasted. Okay, so that's next.html notes on config.xml. Use plugins. Need to include the line, the appropriate gap plugin line in your config.xml. All right, and that's easy to remember because it's right there the first thing when you click on the plugin. All right, now to see how to use the plugin, you click here. Click again. It has some description, and some operating systems have some different things that you need to do. Okay, get current position is so there's going to be a list of methods, and these are the ones. So get current position is going to be the one that I'm going to use. This gives the description, the parameters and what they are, and then an example. So here's an example. You can sort of copy and paste this example. The only thing to keep in mind, so all of these, whatever the method is going to be, the only rule is you can't use it until after that device on ready. Remember the rule in the index.html, if you're going to use a plugin, you need to do this. Okay, so here in your on device ready would be the first place that you would be able to do this. This function here. When you run this function here, it's going to get the current GPS position. And the way it does that is you give the name of a function that's going to be run when it is able to get the position. So it tries to get the position, and when it's ready, it'll run this function, and this function could do something. What my code looks like. So here is geolocation success is the name of my function. Here's the function. So it's a function. The parameter is a position, just like over here. Position. and then position.coords.latitude is the latitude, position.coords.longitude is the longitude, and then you can use that to do something. Here I have some calculations that computes the distance between the phone and root hall. This is the latitude and longitude of root hall. Do this calculation, and then it sets. So document.getElement by ID distance. That was this tag here. Right now there's nothing inside of that tag, but if I set the inner HTML, and that's case sensitive, to this, it'll show up as the distance. And it's not very accurate. Well, if you have your GPS on, it's reasonably accurate. Okay, so that's in there. So this is okay to set things up based on the plugins. For example, you could call the navigator dot whatever that was. Geolocation. Dot get current position. Okay, so that's basically it. If you want to do something with one of the plugins, you find it in this list. And the Phonegap plugins, those are the default ones, so the safest ones to use. They're provided by Apache. Notes on plugins. See note in above about config.xml and index.html. So you have to include the right line in the config, and you have to use the stuff in the index to look up plugins. Go to look at them, click on Phonegap plugins to see the default ones. The other ones are contributed by other people. Some of those are useful as well. Alright, you click on the plugin. There's your config.xml. And here's your description, methods that can be called, and there will be examples of each one down below. If we look at this is my index.html, so look at that code. We had the temperature, the forecast, the distance. These are filled in the index.js. We already looked at the distance one. In the initialize, so this happens right when the page loads. Why does it happen right when the page loads? Because there's this app.initialize. App.initialize. Okay, weather data equals get weather data. Here's get weather. This is a code to get HTML. Let's see, get HTML is a function that I wrote. This is another thing that, depending on what browser you have, uses a different function. But what happens is you can just copy and paste this to get an HTML document. It just gets the source code, the actual code, and returns it as an XML doc. So this is a particular type of variable here. Let's see how I use it. So this XML doc, it's an XML document, and let's see, I get, so this gets all the tags that are named temperature, and if you look in the structure of it, it happens the first one is the current temperature. The second one is the forecast high for today, and the third one is the forecast low for today. It's just the way it's structured. There's different ways to parse this file, but if you look at this, this is for Terre Haute. Okay, this is an XML file, and if we look for temperature, max temperature, and this is under forecast. Okay, so that's the first temperature tag is max, second temperature tag is min, and the next temperature tag is under current observations, and that's the current temperature in Fahrenheit. Okay, so this was the max, min, current, and if we look, the first tag that's a text tag is the forecast. Let's go back up to the top. Text. So this is the current forecast. So this is like today, tomorrow, the next day, and so on. So this is the nearest forecast. All right, so that's why this shows here, and that's just normal JavaScript. There's nothing special about being on a phone. You just need to have your data, some kind of data turned on. All right, so there's that information. All right, so there's these, that just runs on its own in this index.html, and then there's these buttons here that if you look at 8 Queens, it changes to a different web page. All right, so that's showing that you could just have this Queens code be your index.html, and it doesn't have any phone stuff. It just, I'm not going to explain how this works. It's just a JavaScript HTML file that I copied and pasted. Same for Campus. Sensors is a different one. So click on Sensors, a bunch of information that's not filled in, and some buttons that don't do anything. So this is all examples of using different stuff on the phone. This GPS coordinates will show the GPS coordinates of the phone. Heading will show the direction the phone is pointed or heading based off a compass that's in the phone, if there is one. Acceleration is the acceleration sensor, X, Y, and Z. Device would show device information like Motorola, whatever, Android version 3 point something. The buttons, text will show up here when certain of the buttons are pressed, and this battery wasn't working. Vibrate, when you click it, the phone vibrates. Take picture, when you click it, it opens your camera app and prompts you to take 5 pictures, and then it shows them in sequence in an image here. All right, so this is all phone specific stuff. If you load it on the regular computer, you don't see anything, but you can check it for errors, syntax errors. So if you go to your error console, let's clear errors. And I see one error that Phonegap.js is not found. If I look at sensors, here's sensors.html. There's JavaScript first in the head of the document, and then here's the body. There's GPS coordinates, heading, acceleration, device, buttons, battery, and so on. And then there's this JavaScript.js, or Phonegap.js, which only works when it's in the app on the phone. Okay, so if you look at it, you'll get that error. That's fine. If I click this, I'll get an error because this is something also that is specific to the phone. And if I click on the image capture, I'll get an error in there as well. This runs the image capture, which is one of my functions. But it does this. Capture image. Capture image is a Phonegap specific function, so it only works when it's in the app. And the way this works is similar to the geolocation. This is a function that's going to be run when an image is taken correctly, and this is one that runs if there was some error. And this says 5 pictures. Let them take 5 pictures, they could always cancel early. And here's the success. There will be a parameter here, which is a media files object. And if there's at least one object, then I save off. So there's an image tag down below. Image. Right now it doesn't have anything in it, but if they take a picture, then the last picture, this would be the last picture in this media files array. So the last picture there, so the rule, if you look up this, let's go look at this capture. Capture image. So this is just from their example here. Here's their example. That full media files bracket, whichever picture was just taken, full path is the path to the picture on the phone. Okay, so if I set the source to an image tag to that, then it will show. And I set the width of the image to the screen width. So this is screen.width is something that's just normal JavaScript. And I save off that array. All right, there's some other stuff in here, but all right. So each one of these GPS heading, acceleration, device, buttons, battery, and so on. There's some Phonegap stuff in there, and I don't really do any of it until after I get my device ready. So here's I load my Phonegap, and then I listen for device ready. Here's on device ready. And that's where I set all my stuff up. So this is adding listeners to the buttons. If you look under the information about the buttons. So let's see. Let's go to docs. And Phonegap information, events. These are events we can listen to. Let's put 3.3 in here because that's the version that we're using. Events. All right, so these are all events. Volume down button. Volume up button. Some of these work and some of them don't, depending on what kind of phone you're on. Menu button, that's like the settings button. So you add a listener, and then whatever this function is will get run when they press the button. Okay, so I have a function called on menu key down, and here it is. I just set part of my HTML to say that this text, and that's right here. Here's a tag. It has ID of buttons, and so then if I get that tag and set the inner HTML to this. All right, so on my on device ready, this is where you set everything up. So that's setting up the button listeners, and then update sensors. These are my functions. First, I try and get the GPS coordinates. We already looked at how that works. You call this, and that will run this function when it gets the coordinates. And if there is no navigator object, and there's no navigator.geolocation, or there's no this, then that means I'm not in Phonegap or something. So there's no geolocation data. All right, and heading, device acceleration, device information, that all works. So the device acceleration, those all work similar. There's a function that gets called, look at accelerate. So this will get run, and the parameter is accel, and in the documentation on Phonegap about the acceleration plugin, there's a .x, a .y, and a .z, and the units are in meters per second squared. So if the phone's just resting and it's straight up and down, then one of these is going to be 9.8 meters per second squared just because of gravity. Okay, and then the update sensors, the way I have it in there, these values would be updating continuously, or roughly continuously, and the way I have that is I have a set timeout. When I get to the end of the update sensors function, 1 second later, that's 1,000 milliseconds, run the update sensors function again. So this just keeps getting run every 1 second. And that's the way I have something happen continuously in JavaScript. Okay, so if you want to use those plugins, you can download this, which I'll update here shortly. So you can download that and look at sensors.html. Also try making a new GitHub repository with that code after unzipping it, and making a new app in your account with that code, and then running it on your own device or emulate it. All right. So I'm giving you the source code. You can go and run it yourself, make changes, whatever you want to do. All right, that's all I really wanted to say about Phonegap. For now, forever. If there's something else you want to do that you're having trouble with, ask me and I'll help you get started. So for example, somebody was doing wanting to do a graph, drawing a graph, and so that's why I did this example, just showing that you can click and draw circles, which is the first step to having a graph, and you need to draw the edges. Right, so once I got him started, he was able to